Hello.
Hello, Ken?
Yeah. What's up?
How's it going, sir? This is Izzy from MMA Jam Live. How you doing this evening?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. It's an honor talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday evening to chat with us here for a few.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. And listen, during this interview, if by chance when I'm talking it goes out, I'm traveling, so I had to squeeze this in during some travel time. So please just call back.
Okay, not a problem, sir. Thank you for the heads up. We'll get right into it.
Okay,
you've been involved with the sport of mixed martial arts for over 20 years. Did you ever find yourself reminiscing about your career? If so, what moment stands out the most?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not really any one moment. I think because it happened so fast. I mean, I was in Japan. I became a world champion there. I became a world champion here in the States. I got in WWF very fast and became a champion there. It just seemed like everything was such a whirlwind. But I look back on it now, and I can look at it on a whole as a career, and just really enjoy the process and the direction that it took me over the years. I mean, seriously, I don't know anybody that I can look at right now that had jumped into a career and had as much success as I have over not just a year, 2, 3 years, but over my career, my whole career.
Yeah, I think it's definitely you never hear anybody have such a prolonged success, especially after over 22 years, and yet your name is still firmly in the minds of MMA fans everywhere. Not only MMA fans, but pro wrestling fans like myself who, to be honest, that's where I'm still a young guy, so I actually saw you prominently in the WWF. That's where I got real familiar with you.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, I was definitely blessed to have the opportunities that I did in my career. And when you look at one part of it, like I said, I can't just look at one part of my career and focus on it. It was more of a journey, man, and it's just such a pleasant sight to just look back and go, wow, man, what a career. And like I said, man, I can't look back on it and see anybody that has, gone through the career that I have, even the ups and downs, the goods and the bads, and still be where I'm at today. And, a lot of that has to do with, my beliefs in Jesus Christ. He sustained me and kept me above ground and kept me thinking about right and doing the right thing all the time. And it's led me where I'm at here today. So.
Yeah, I completely agree, sir. Now, your first documented fight went down at 1992. That was nearly 22 years ago. Can you explain to our listeners how you first got your start in MMA and what ultimately led you to Japan?
Well, my first start in MMA is I was doing some pro wrestling in Mooresville, North Carolina, and I was wrestling with George Anderson and Nelson Royal. There was a circuit they had down there, and then Dean Malenko had come up to do some work up there for the organization, and he had actually showed me this tape that his dad had this team up there in his gym that were training for this event they were doing in Japan, and it was called Pancrase, and it was feet fighting, fist fighting, and ground technique. And so when I saw the videotape, I saw Masami Saranaka and Suzuki Monori, and I watched their match in there, and I looked at it in awe. And this was, this was back in 90. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, this stuff is the ultimate in hand-to-hand combat. And so I inquired about it and thought, hey, you know what? I wonder if I could get into that. And he says, I could give you a hookup and go see my dad, and he'll hook you up with Masami Saranaka, who was the promoter for Japan. And so he did. He hooked me up. I flew down there. I did a tryout. I pretty much beat everybody up. And then next thing I know, I was on a plane in Japan to do some tryouts down there. It was great, dude. I mean, and again, once I did the tryouts in Japan, I got my butt handed to me down there. But once I got in and I started working and they actually accepted me and went and did my first fight, I won my first fight, never looked back after that. I said, this stuff is for me.
That's insane. Now you actually began your MMA career 3-0. All in Japan, before taking part in the very first UFC event. Can you describe the atmosphere, what you remember on that night, and whether or not you believe the event lived up to the hype?
You talking about very first UFC?
Yes, sir.
Oh. All I can do is I remember we were in the locker room, and first of all, going there, I fought over in Japan 3 days prior to the very first UFC event. I never really believed they were going to let something like that happen because it was bare knuckle, no rules, no time limit. So, and you fight 3-4 times in one night. So in my mind back then, no one ever saw anything like that. So in my mind, I was going, there's no way they're going to let this happen. They're going to come up to us. They're going to say, okay, this is how it works. I thought it was going to be a gimmick. So I went to Japan. I defended my title. I beat Fouquet. I had to come back, fly into Denver, Colorado 3 days prior to this event with the idea that they were going to come to me and say, okay, this is how it works. And it didn't. They never did. So going all the way up into the fight, I'm thinking it's not going to happen. Well, I'm in the locker room, and the very first fight happens, and it was Gerard Godot, and I believe it was a sumo fighter, Emmanuel Tui. I'm not sure if that is his name or not, but the very first fight in UFC history was a kickboxer against a sumo. And the bell rang, and we're on the locker room. We have these monitors in there, and everybody's popping pads, and they're, testosterone's flying, and everybody's kind of acting tough. And they saw this skinny guy, 195 pounds, throw a right hand and hit this 500-pound sumo guy in the face, put him on the ground, and walk over and football kick him in the face. Keith go flying in the front row, and the announcers there were Superfoot Bill Wallace and Kathy Long, both kickboxing champions, right? So they're talking. As soon as this happened, the Keith went flying in the front row. They just paused. It felt like it was like a minute, but it was like a split second. In the locker room, everybody stopped. I mean, the pads, nobody was doing anything. They were silent, right? And they were looking on the monitors. And all of a sudden, someone went, oh, my gosh, did you just see that? He kicked him in the face when he was down. The crowd went nuts. And then Wallace went on there and said, now this is something we've never seen before. And I was thinking to myself when I was in the locker room when this happened, I heard these guys talking. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what, I'm not going in that ring. And I thought to myself, and I said it out loud, not knowing I said it out loud, and I go, well, what does no holds barred mean to you guys? So that was my first experience on it. For me, because I came from the streets, normally I had to fight 3 or 4 guys at a time, or if I didn't, one had a weapon, a knife, or a gun. So when I was in the ring fighting, I was like, this is all I got to worry about, man. This is exciting for me. But there was a lot of guys who were like kickboxing, a guy who was ranked #1 in boxing, and then you had another guy who was a strong kickboxer over in Holland. A lot of these guys didn't want to get in the ring because there were no rules. But that was my experience in MMA the very first time.
That's insane. Now, some of your best early fights actually took place against guys like Bas Rutten and Masakatsu Funaki. Guys, you went 2-1 against Funaki and 2-0 against Rutten. What was it about those guys that brought out the very best in Ken Shamrock?
Well, when you talk about a level of competition, Masakatsu Funaki was the one that actually trained me over in Japan. When I fought him my first time, I lost to him. In my mind, I hated losing. I mean, I hated losing more than anything in the world. I mean, I would die before I'd want to lose something. And it usually was because of the way I was brought up. You only had a few things in your life that were yours, and the only way you kept them was by fighting. And so when I started getting trained by Funaki, and I lost him the first time, I saw my opportunity at a lifestyle that I wanted slipping away. So to me, I said, you know what? I'm going to find a way to beat this guy, even though he's the one teaching me. I went back and I fought him like 6 months later. I beat him the next 2 times. And this is the guy that trained me. It was a mental thing. It was a thing I wasn't going to lose. I refused to lose, and I just found ways to win.
How difficult was it to be fighting a guy that trained you? How difficult was that?
Well, for me, it wasn't difficult at all. I mean, most people go, well, I can't fight my friend. I don't want to hit him. I don't want this. I always saw it as a thing of respect. You know what I mean? If a guy's training me to fight, just like when I train somebody, my idea for them is for my ceiling to be their floor. I want them to be better than me. I want them to go farther than me, especially if I'm training them to carry my name. And I thought that the same way with my instructor. I felt like it was a sign of respect for me to be better, for me to go farther. So I had no problem punching him or hitting him because the way I thought was like, we're in a fight. He knows what we're doing. He trained me for this. and he's expecting me to be better than him. He wants me to go farther than him. So if I didn't do that, then I would be disrespecting him.
You know, it's a very interesting perspective because that idea, that thought is non-existent in today's MMA where, you know, two new teammates don't exactly want to fight each other ever.
That's crazy. For guys to be in a job where it's combat, it's competitive, and they have two guys stand there and say, well, we're friends, we train together, we're not going to fight. That, to me, is ridiculous. What do you think? What kind of job do you think you're in? I mean, if you sign up for this stuff, you know, and you're training with somebody and that person gets as good as you, well, let me give you an example. If you have somebody that's a world champion and he's fought and earned his way there, and then you have a guy that's underneath him that's training with him, and he goes out and he fights all the guys he's supposed to fight, and then he becomes the number one contender, and the guy that's the world champion goes, no, you can't fight me because I train with you. Is that fair? The guy's earned his right to be there. But just because he happens to train with the guy and maybe be friends with him, he goes, oh, well, sorry, brother, but you don't deserve the belt because we're friends.
Yeah, well, and I guess it comes down to, I mean, he's taking money out of your, you know, family's mouth. I mean, food out of your family's mouth. So it's just one of those things where, you know, being number two is never going to get you paid more than being number one.
Well, let's say this, dude. I just want to, if that is the case, and you have that kind of, I'm okay with that. That's great. But don't get into fight. Don't be training with people that you know are going to be get an opportunity to get up there and challenge you for the belt. If that's the case, then don't get into this sport.
Completely agree. Now you've had a lot of rivalries, both in the UFC and all over, really. Now the one that stands out, well, the first one is which marks next year marks the 20th anniversary of your UFC 5 fight with Royce Gracie. That fight obviously took place on April 7th, 1995. Did you ever have any regrets that there was no definitive winner in that fight?
Well, of course it was, and there was a definitive winner. I mean, like I said, I beat him into the ground. They carried him out of the ring. Just because they didn't have a judge's decision and the time ran out don't mean that there wasn't a winner. In my eyes and everybody that watched the fight, I won the fight. I don't have to have it in the record books to say it was a win. I don't have that kind of an ego. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to me. He knows it. The people that watch the fight knows it, and I know it.
I could not agree more. I think it's just people are so infatuated with records that they just see that as a draw and nothing else. Nobody worries about what actually happened that night.
Well, it was just like this, and this is the way I think. When I had an opportunity to win, I don't know, it was $75,000, I walked out of a fight. I was there to fight Royce Gracie. I won my 2 fights to get there. Royce Gracie won his first fight, won his second fight against Chemo, was too exhausted to face me in the finals. But that's the only reason why I went there for the fight. The guy I would have fought, I'd have killed him in a heartbeat. No problem, I'd have squashed him. But that's not why I was there. I was there for Royce Gracie and Royce Gracie only. And when the opportunity for me to fight him was gone, so was my aggression or my ability to want to go in the ring and fight. So I walked away from $75,000 because it's not the money I was after. It wasn't anything but the opportunity to avenge the loss I had.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough hand right there. In late '96, at seemingly the peak of your fighting career, you signed on with what was then known as the WWF. How would you describe your 2+ years with the organization?
Say that again?
How would you describe your 2+ years with the WWF?
Oh, well, that's hard to say because it was a nightmare and it was exciting. Yeah, I had a lot of issues there, especially when I was training all the time. When I was in the UFC, I was always training. I had a schedule. I was always on track and everything. And then when I went to the WWF at the time, I had all this free time. And so I got to travel all over the world, got to see a lot of things, but I also got into a lot of problems. I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing. So it was fun, but at the same time, I think it hurt me. In the long run, I think it really it hurt me in my lifestyle and the way I should have been living.
Now, my favorite WWF match that you were involved in was at WrestleMania 14, where you took on Rocky Maivia, who's now known, obviously, as The Rock. You won that match with the Ankh lock, but then you wouldn't release the hold. which resulted in you the win being overturned. Now, you ended up playing your character brilliantly.
Come on, man. That was a joke. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Really?
Hey,
I get the guy in an ankle lock. I make him tap out, right? And then because I hold it too long, they take the win away from me. Tell me who has that right? Who has that right to do that?
I didn't agree with that. I'm here. I was here. I was 11 years old, and I was a fan of yours. I hated The Rock, so I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" You know, like I was pissed.
They robbed me, man. It was highway robbery.
Now, my question is, how easy was it to portray a man that seemingly played by his own rules?
Say that again.
How easy was it to portray a character that played by his own rules?
How do you portray a character played by his own rules?
Oh, no. I said how easy was it for you to portray a character that didn't really follow rules? He played by his own rules.
Oh, you mean my character?
Yeah, yes, sir.
No, that wasn't a character. That was me. That's
exactly the answer I was looking. I knew that much.
That was no character. That was me.
Definitely. Now you won several titles during your stint with WWF, but never the heavyweight title, which I think was ridiculous. I believe that the WWF didn't want a UFC guy as their champion. Do you think that politics such as that led to their reluctance to give you a run with the title?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that worked, but I thought I was in the position to make a run for the heavyweight title, but I don't know what happened. It just kind of dropped off because like I said, I had gone through all the channels I needed to go through. I beat everybody that were, second, third, fourth, and number one contender. And I thought I did everything I needed to do, and just never got the chance. So, hey, all I can do is control what I do and how they think and what they do. I can't do anything about that.
Now, you've mentioned in the past, I've came across a couple, maybe an interview or two in which you mentioned the possibility of returning to the WWE, but you also cited Triple H as a potential problem. Will Triple H's ego make a potential return unlikely?
Oh, I think so. I do. I don't think that, as far as the WWF is, I don't think I'll be able to go back there. I think there's definitely some politics there that's going to keep me from going back, no question.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate because, as I mentioned, I was a huge fan of yours there all over, really, but I just felt like they didn't get enough mileage out of the character. The character was brilliant. It was brilliantly played. Actually, it was you yourself, so even better, but it's unfortunate. Now, yeah. on February 24th, 2002, you fought Don Fry at Pride 19 in one of my all-time favorite fights. Looking back, do you feel as though that was your toughest fight?
Well, I don't know. It was one of the toughest fights, but I don't. Like I said, I can't go and tip anyone that says, "Wow, that was my toughest." I've had a lot of them. I fought for 46 minutes straight over in Japan. And then I fought 36 minutes straight in the UFC against Royce Gracie, two of them being the longest fights ever in MMA history. Those were definitely tough because it's a long time to have to get after somebody. But Don Fry was definitely up there because I said I've never been knocked down, let alone knocked out. And he hit me with a hook and put me down, and I don't remember going down. I don't remember anything. All I do is remember is I woke up and I had him in a heel hook. And that was a space in there that I didn't remember until I actually saw the video. So he's hit me the hardest.
I remember seeing that fight and actually saw it again. I thought two things. I was like, A, how the heck did you survive that knockdown? And B, how did he survive that submission attempt? So it was like, wow.
That's true. Absolutely. It was like I said, it's instinct. You do it for so long, and your body it reacts, and it just goes what it's used to doing. And so when he clipped me with that shot, not clipped me, he hit me with it. And, pretty much took my jaw to the other side of my face. And I hit the ground, and then I don't remember it, but because I've been doing it for so long, my body just did it without even thinking. It just did it.
Yeah, that was just one of my all-time favorites. Just a crazy fight. It's widely believed that injuries sustained during your WWE days led to the accumulation of injuries in the latter stages of your career. Do you feel like pro wrestling injuries hindered you at the end of your career?
No question. I mean, you got to think about it. I've got from 3 through 7 in my neck. I've got screws and plates in. For my lower back, 1 through 4 in my lower back, I got screws and metal plates in there. In my shoulder, I got a titanium ball in my shoulder. I've got a titanium rod in my knee. So, yeah, there's no question it played a role in my retirement and definitely in my later years in fighting and also in the WWE.
You know, and another thing that doesn't get talked about as often as it does is just the amount of work that goes into it. I mean, people question whether, you know, WWE is a sport or entertainment or a combination of both.
Well, let me cut you off right there. Unless you do it, I don't want to hear anybody tell me it's fake, because MMA is got its own little entity there. It is tough and it is brutal. But when I've done both of them, and WWF is brutal. I mean, guys get their necks broken, guys get killed. So when people tell me, oh, that's fake, I look at them and I go, man, why don't you give it a shot? Let a 400-pound guy drop off the ropes on you and then tell me it's fake.
That is exactly, I mean, as a lifelong wrestling fan, that is like music to my ears right there, because it's in no way, shape, or form it's fake. I mean, it's choreographed, you can say that, but it's no way. It is choreographed,
but those moves and the things that you do in there, they come with a risk. So when someone says it's fake, I don't know fake being risky.
Now, Ken, we have just a couple of more questions. You recently made amends with UFC President Dana White. Why do you believe that you and Dana making up would ultimately be good for the sport and its fans?
Well, listen, I've been in this thing, and I've been trying to live my life right. I've turned my life over to Christ. I'm trying to live the way He wants me to live. And one of these things came up where it was a question about Dana, and basically God took over from there, man. I took the high road, basically said we need to squash this thing. We owe it to the fans. We owe it to MMA. We owe it to the UFC. We owe it to each other. We need to just let this thing go. And that's just part of the road I had to travel in order to get right with my God. And that was, my brother Frank, Tito Ortiz, and Dana White. These are things that my Lord and Savior had asked of me, that I needed to be the one to let it go and be the one to ask for forgiveness in order to get it back from them, in order for them to accept it.
No, that's truly incredible, and I think I speak for a lot of fans in saying that was probably one of the bigger things that happened. I mean, you were such a huge part of MMA and the UFC in the early going, and Dana White is who he is, or as of this moment. So you guys burying that hatchet was just a huge, personally for me as well.
Well, I think that it's also too. It's a great testimony for many people who watch this thing happen out through Twitter and the social media. Forgiveness is a big thing. And it's something that I think everybody in some part of their life they have to deal with, and that they need to step up and do. Because in order to receive forgiveness or get forgiveness, you got to be willing to do it yourself.
Well, I really thank you for those words, because to be honest, that's something I guess we all battle with, is the I wouldn't call it ability, but just forgiving someone is just one of the hardest things anyone has to go through, because it kind of sort of, I mean, it's not admitting you're wrong, it's just admitting your part and just being able to forgive somebody and hoping they forgive you back.
Well, what about this? It's pretty difficult for me, because it really tugged at my heartstrings and it really, really hurt me, was that my brother Frank, when my father was dying, we brought him home on respite for him to pass away. Now, my brother Frank and him had been fighting for a long time because of the situation with me and Frank. My father asked for him to come and put things to rest. Frank said that he would mourn at home. And then my dad passed away. He never gave him a chance to get things right. Now, that really, really stuck in me. And then God asked me, him. So I did. Now, that was hard. But once I was obedient, I did what I was supposed to do. Doors just flew open. He came out. He was forgiving. It was just so much more gained out of that than if I would have still held on to it. But that, you want to talk about tough, that was hard for me to do. But once I did it, I felt like this huge weight lifted off me.
I completely agree that must have been one of the toughest moments. And I think from an outsider's perspective, I think that was just such a special moment between you and Frank. I think that was just incredible.
Yeah, that's one thing I tried to let him know is listen, I can forgive you. I can ask for your forgiveness. I can do everything that I need to do to try and help you get through all this. I said, but I can't be the one to forgive you for what you did to Pop. You're going to have to find a way for that to happen. And so I think that's what he struggles with, was that you can't change that. And I knew when he did it, I knew that sooner or later he was going to have to face the devil on that one.
Yeah, that's one. I mean, I have no words for that. It's really a tough situation for anyone to really be in. Now, a final question here, Ken. You retired from MMA in 2010 after a highly decorated career in Japan, WWF, and the United States, all over the world, really. Is there any part of your career at all that you look back on with any sort of regret?
No. First thing I learned in life is you don't look back and regret anything. You can look back and learn from it. You can look back and definitely not make the same mistakes. But regret, you got to let that go. You can't hang on to that stuff.
Could not agree more. Well, Ken, it was a tremendous honor having you on. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to chat with us here.
I appreciate it, man, and thank you. And listen, if you can let people know how to chat, I'm on my Twitter all the time. I'm on there, and I talk all the time. We talk about fights, we talk about all kinds of different stuff. So just let people know they can get on there. It's at Shamrock Ken.
Oh, consider it done. Consider it done. We'll get right on that, sir.
I appreciate it, man. You guys have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too, Ken. I'm a fan for life. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.